Hi, I'm Beth, and this is Remark. Today we're going to talk about Getaway by Zoje Stage. If you are a long-time subscriber of this channel, you may remember when way back in the day, she came out with her debut novel called Baby Teeth, and I ripped it apart. I didn't like the way I felt mental illness was portrayed. I didn't like the way that this little kid who needed help was turned into an enemy or an evil child. And it irked me, probably because of my own personal bias. Okay, 95% because of my own personal bias in dealing with my own kid who had his own mental needs that I was working really, really hard to address. But there were two things about that book that really stayed with me. One is that it elicited such a strong response out of me. There was no meekness, no dithering there. It really brought out a lot of emotion and a lot of response from me. The other thing is that even though I disagreed with how she portrayed the characters, it was really well written. It was tight, suspenseful, intriguing, captivating, an all-around well-written novel, even though I found it problematic. So when I saw that she had Getaway, actually she's come out with a couple of books since Baby Teeth, but when I saw Getaway, I felt that I owed it to the author to give her another chance. And owed it to myself too, because maybe it's someone that I would like and wasn't really giving a fair shake. So I read it and I can already report I loved it. This is going to be a good review. Thank the stars. There will be no negativity here. Okay, maybe one tiny negative thing, but overall, glowing review, 90% glowing. So it follows three sisters. Actually, two of them are sisters and one is their lifelong friend. Beck and Imogen are sisters. Their lifelong friend Tilda, the three of them decide to go on a week-long camping trip where they hike across the Grand Canyon. Now, Imogen is the main character of our story, and she starts out with trauma. She is involved in a shooting at a synagogue. She's subject of a hate crime, she and her fellow churchgoers, and so she's already been through hell. And there's an allusion to something in the past that happened that was also traumatic for her that led to a big falling out between her and Tilda. So there's already all that weight, all that history, all that baggage that Imogen is carrying with her going into the trip, not just from the hate crime that she survived, but also from this tension that she's had for years between herself and her best friend Tilda. Beck is determined to fix it, to make everything all better between all three of them and restore harmony onto their lives, hold hands, sing kumbaya, everything is awesome. So, of course you know everything's not going to be awesome. Just look at the cover. There are not like colorful daisies here. This is a moody, red, emotion and danger-filled landscape full of crags and rocks and spills and thrills. Of course, this isn't going to be tripping through the daisies. This is going to be a treacherous trip. So along the way, they find trouble, and that is all I'm going to tell you. That's all I'm going to tell you. I don't want to spoil any of it. I want you to read it and discover it. I know I'm a broken record because I say this often in my reviews. Just read it. You will enjoy it. Here's some things I liked about the book. 1, well written. 2, it describes the Grand Canyon really well, and it also describes the process of camping and hiking really well. You can tell this author, Zoje Stage, either has personal history with it or has researched it really, really well. She knows her stuff. 3, I really like the relationship between the three women in the book. You can see the tension between them, the realistic dialogue, the way that they work through things, the way they band together, the way they fall apart. It's a whole story in and of itself that even if you didn't bring in all the danger, all of the nature, all of that stuff, just the dynamic between those three women is a really intriguing story to follow. The number 4 thing I liked about this was the personal growth within Imogen herself. You could tell that this was not just a trek through the mountains, this was a trek within herself. Here's the one thing that I wasn't crazy about in Getaway, and that's the way that the dialogue was written by one of the baddies in the book. The guy was kind of written like a backwoods typical character, but the dialogue was spelled out like for yer, it was Y-E-R, or a lot of Y-A for you, or a lot of fur for the word for. And I don't know, there was something about seeing it written that it just seemed a little bit try hard. And that could be just me. Sometimes the way dialogue is written out will kind of melt away as the pages go on, but for some reason it just seemed obvious to me the whole way through. Could be because I'm a hillbilly yokel and to see people riding out fur is just weird. Could be, I don't know. I don't know. It was just weird. Didn't really take away from the story. Um, But that does bring me to a number 5 thing that I did like about that book, and it was how the baddie was written. You often see in some of these stories the bad people are definitively bad, the good people are definitively good. There is a lot of gray area here, which I really appreciate and enjoy seeing. The bad guy wants to think of himself as just a guy caught up in a bad situation trying to do the right thing, even though he's not. And the good people probably all think that they're justified in all the things they do, even though one of the ladies in particular at certain situations will say things that are really not ideal, but you kind of see that inner struggle of her working through that. So it's not necessarily a new concept, man versus nature. It's something that's been done many times before in books and movies that we've all seen and loved. For example, The River Wild with Meryl Streep and Kevin Bacon, where a rafting instructor has to defend her family against an evil guy. Or The River at Night by Erica, or is it Elena Ferenchek? Anyway, it's really good. Or The Descent, also known as 6 Chicks with Picks, who are caving enthusiasts who you already feel the claustrophobia from the caves as they go spelunking, but then they come across monsters. Or Deliverance, the infamous book in which the men go out for a hiking weekend and come across these evil hillbillies who make them do unspeakable things. So it's been done before, it's been said before, this isn't a new concept, so why bring on kind of an old concept? Because it's awesome. It's so awesome. You're not only dealing with man versus man, you're also dealing with man versus nature. Each of those different scenarios within themselves are full of challenges. Just the man versus nature element of it alone is rife with danger because nature is not necessarily kind. It's rife with beauty because nature, while not necessarily kind, is also beautiful to behold. It's rife with all sorts of challenges and treacherous paths and symbolism hiding around every nook and cranny. But then you bring in man versus man, you're already dealing with this challenge of being one with nature. Then you bring in another person to the equation, and whether the situation is suspenseful or murderous or even just, going down to the heart of emotions in a problem, but the examples I'm using here are murderous. But whatever the conflict is, you're bringing on double conflict because you have it coming at you from both sides and you're already out in the open, you're already in nature, so really there's nowhere to run and hide because you're already out in the great big open. It's a fascinating concept and there's so many original things you can do with it, which is what Zoje Sage did with Getaway. She came up with an original concept using a tried and true concept. Now, nature also, as I said, is inherent with lots and lots of beauty and is kind of a siren song for authors who want to write about that and really feel that. It goes all the way back to Walden by Henry David Thoreau about a man who is disenchanted with his humdrum of everyday city life and goes to lose himself in nature. The book, I don't know that I necessarily recommend it because, it's full of walls of text. And to be honest, it's a little bit, what's the word when it's a little bit sanctimonious. Wee bit sanctimonious. Here's one of the passages about the lakes that he is beholding and finding so beautiful. They are too pure to have a market value. They contain no muck. How much more beautiful than our lives? How much more transparent than our characters are they? We never learned meanness of them. So there's that. There's that kind of losing yourself in nature, and not only losing yourself in nature, but finding yourself in nature, finding a new meaning to life. You see kind of a similar meditation within Imogen whenever they're doing their hiking. Civilization had gone awry with its buildings and highways, its digitalization and consumption, binge watching TV. Humans had adapted to a meaningless structure of work and wealth that resulted in a fundamental loss of identity. Here, you could return to the natural order, enjoy the two-part state of doing the necessities to survive and sitting around doing nothing, unburdened of existential angst. It's kind of like this chance to get away from it all is supposed to kind of breathe new life into you. And that's really what Imogen goes into the trip wanting to get out of nature and winds up kind of getting out of her fellow people instead. Maybe a combination of the two. Anyway, really good book. Getaway, Zoje Stage. Read it, will ya? Let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you, Zoje Stage, for giving this reader another chance at your works. I'm excited to go back and read your other book prior to this one. I will catch you next time. Bye. Oh, what's the name of that other book with the banjo? Deliverance.